Angel Reese may be a fan favorite, but it's Caitlin Clark whose name has become a dividing line inside the WNBA. Resentment has built quickly, fueled by disproportionate media attention, race-based critiques, and dangerous in-game fouls that look more like messages than mistakes. Stephen A. Smith highlighted the Kennedy Carter hip check not just as a cheap shot, but as a symptom of something deeper.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
A cultural rift that's been allowed to fester. Add an institutional silence from Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, and the result is a workplace where generational stars are left to fend for themselves. Saudi Arabia's offer doesn't just provide financial security. It removes Clark from this toxic dynamic entirely. The idea of a short, global exhibition tour with state-backed funding creates a new kind of platform, one free from the WNBA's internal dysfunction. As Smith warns, this isn't just about Clark's future. It's about whether the league survives the choices it's making now. Caitlin Clark is at the center of what could be the most dramatic power shift in women's sports history. And it all comes down to one number, $1 billion. Stephen A. Smith didn't just stir the pot. He lit it on fire when he confirmed that Clark has been approached with a potentially billion-dollar offer from Saudi Arabia. Not for a grueling overseas season, not to disappear into obscurity, but for something far more dangerous to the WNBA's already fragile foundation. An international super league or high-profile exhibition tour that cuts out all the politics, travel chaos, and locker room tension, and hands her a check the league could never dream of matching. Let's be clear, this isn't a rumor anymore. This is leverage, and Clark holds all of it. She's the most marketable female athlete in the world right now, not just in women's basketball. She's selling out arenas, breaking viewership records, and turning a casual fan base into a frenzy. And yet, the WNBA's salary is $76,000. That's not a typo. That's real. That's less than what some NBA mascots make to dance on the sidelines. That's what the #1 draft pick gets, while carrying an entire league's relevance on her back. Stephen A. didn't sugarcoat it. He called it financial suicide. And it is, because this isn't just about Clark being underpaid. It's about a league refusing to evolve. A league that for decades has been subsidized by the NBA, stuck in outdated financial structures, clinging to a business model that doesn't make room for breakout superstars. And now, that refusal has consequences. Clark isn't just being underpaid. She's being targeted. Literally. On the court. The Kennedy Carter hip check? That wasn't just a hard foul. It was a message. And the worst part? No suspension. No official penalty. Not even a league statement. When the WNBA had the chance to show that its star players would be protected, they stayed silent. And that silence speaks volumes. Because the environment Clark is in right now, it's toxic. And it's not just about physical play, it's about resentment. She's a white woman in a league dominated by black women. And yes, the media's obsession with her has created friction. Some of her peers feel like they've been overlooked for years, grinding for recognition while she's catapulted to the top in a single season. And when the league doesn't address that dynamic, doesn't protect her from the aggression or acknowledge the tension, they're not just enabling hostility. They're allowing it to define the narrative. So now, Clark is being pushed toward a deal that offers her not just money, but peace and freedom. And yes, power. The Saudi offer isn't about joining a full-on team. It's not a trade. It's a potential exhibition league or tour, similar to LIV Golf, that brings the top names together, pays them like the superstars they are, and removes them from the daily grind of domestic travel, underwhelming paychecks, and internal locker room drama. Players like Angel Reese could be involved. It's the kind of thing that sounds impossible until you realize it's already happening in other sports. And before anyone throws the morality card, yes, Saudi Arabia has human rights concerns. Yes, this is sports washing. But what moral high ground is the WNBA standing on? They've underpaid their stars for decades. They've failed to enforce basic safety. They've refused to change their salary structure even as players drive revenue. They rely on the NBA's money like a safety net while still claiming independence. Clark is being offered something the WNBA hasn't given her: generational wealth, safety, and respect. The entire economic foundation of the WNBA would collapse under the weight of an offer like this. The highest paid players in the league right now top out around $240,000. A deal worth $1 billion, even if spread across multiple players, would instantly destabilize that model. The union couldn't manage the fallout. The league couldn't contain the jealousy. And every top-tier player would be looking for the exit. It's not just a salary gap, it's a canyon. And the longer the WNBA tries to pretend that this isn't a crisis, the more likely they are to lose everything. This is a league that just got its first mainstream star with crossover appeal. Someone who brought eyes, dollars, sponsors. And instead of protecting her, they let her become a punching bag, on and off the court. Stephen A. isn't being dramatic when he says this could be the collapse of the WNBA as we know it. Caitlin Clark doesn't need the league. Her endorsements with Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm are locked in no matter where she plays. Her brand was built before she ever stepped on a WNBA court. The WNBA needed her, not the other way around. In the digital age, players are the exposure. They don't need a league logo to go viral. Social media has made it clear. Clark is the show, the ticket, the business. Her presence elevates everything around her, and that's exactly why Saudi investors see the opportunity. Because if the WNBA won't pay its stars what they're worth, someone else will. There's no loyalty left when the numbers are this far apart. And if Clark leaves, it won't be betrayal. It'll be the most predictable outcome imaginable. The league gambled on a status quo that's been broken for years. They had the warning signs. They had the Kennedy Carter play. They had the fan outcry. And still, they stayed silent. Meanwhile, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert? Still no public response. No accountability. No leadership. That vacuum has been filled by Stephen A. Smith. When your biggest media voice is coming from outside the league, you know the structure is cracked. He's diagnosing what the league refuses to acknowledge. Clark is bigger than the WNBA, and the league isn't equipped to support what she represents. Even if she doesn't take the deal, the damage is done. The $1 billion offer proves there's a market for women's basketball that's bigger than what the WNBA has allowed itself to become. It proves that players can and should demand more. And it proves that waiting for the system to evolve is no longer the only option. Domestic alternatives like the unrivaled 3-on-3 league are great, but let's be honest, they don't have the capital to compete with Saudi money. They can't offer $1 billion. They can't provide instant international reach. And they definitely can't solve the internal culture problems that the WNBA has refused to confront. Caitlin Clark walking away would trigger a chain reaction. TV ratings collapse, sponsorships back out, fan interest plummets, and the league enters a tailspin. Because what Clark represents isn't just scoring ability or highlight reels. She represents hope, visibility, financial growth. If she leaves, the narrative turns. She becomes the one that got away. And the league becomes the cautionary tale of how to fumble your future by clinging to the past. The resentment from legacy players? That doesn't go away either. It intensifies, because now the money's out there. And if one player can get it, others will demand it too. But the WNBA can't afford to scale up. Not like that. Not fast enough. And let's not pretend this isn't about race too. The fact that Clark's rapid rise has triggered backlash speaks to a deeper issue in the league. How race, fame, and marketability collide in a way that makes players feel undervalued, ignored, or pushed aside. Clark becoming the great white hope in a predominantly black league complicates everything. And without honest dialogue, that tension festers. Stephen A. didn't ignore that. He addressed it head-on. And he's right. It's a dynamic the league can't afford to pretend doesn't exist, because it shapes how players feel, how fans react, and how stars like Clark calculate their next move. And that next move? It's already in motion. The WNBA had a window, a moment, and they let it slip. They thought they had time. They thought Clark would play nice, stay quiet, keep showing up, even as the culture got colder, the hits got harder, and the silence got louder. But time's up. Caitlin Clark has options, real ones, and if she takes them, it won't be out of greed, it'll be out of necessity. Because when a billion-dollar deal offers you not just money, but dignity, the only real question left is, what are you waiting for? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is this the end of the WNBA as we know it, or the beginning of something bigger for women's sports? Like the video if you're watching the chaos unfold in real time, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next moment when everything changes. And we're still not done, because this situation only gets more explosive the deeper you go. Let's stop pretending this is a normal contract conversation. This is a reckoning. A once-in-a-generation athlete is being offered a deal that doesn't just outshine her current salary, it obliterates it. $1 billion. That's not a raise. That's not a pay bump. That's a complete redefinition of what an athlete like Caitlin Clark is worth. And most brutal part? It had to come from outside the WNBA. Because the league she's currently in, the one she elevated overnight, is treating her like a marketing tool when she's actually the product. Stephen A. Smith laid it out in plain language. This isn't about money anymore. This is about the survival of the WNBA. Caitlin Clark isn't just their top rookie. She's their economic engine. She's not a bonus. She's the blueprint. And if she leaves, what's left? Legacy players with no incentive to stay. Sponsors without a face to build around. Viewers with no reason to tune in. The whole thing crumbles. Because Clark's potential exit sends a signal no league wants to admit. The biggest names in women's basketball can outgrow the WNBA. And fast. Let's go back to the locker room dynamics, because this piece of the story isn't going away. Clark has walked into a storm that most rookies would never be expected to weather. The level of on-court hostility she's faced from day one is unlike anything the league has seen in years. We're not talking about tough defense. We're talking about intentional fouls, cheap shots, elbows, and what makes it worse? The complete lack of response from the league's front office. The Kennedy Carter hit wasn't a one-off. It was symbolic. It represented what happens when a league fails to regulate its own culture. When players feel so emboldened by resentment and silence that they take matters into their own hands. And when fans and commentators point it out, what does the WNBA do? Nothing. Which means Clark is left to fend for herself in a league that won't even issue a statement in her defense. That kind of silence sends a message. A dangerous one. It says, we know you're the star, but you're on your own. Now layer on the racial dynamics, which Stephen A. had the guts to acknowledge publicly. Caitlin Clark, a white woman, has been positioned as the savior of a league that has long been dominated by black athletes. That framing, whether intended or not, has created division. Veterans who've been in the game for a decade, who've sacrificed, who've endured the league's growing pains, are now watching a rookie get the lion's share of media attention, endorsements, and public support. It's not jealousy. It's the exhaustion of being overlooked for years, only to see the spotlight finally show up and shine in a direction that feels all too familiar in American sports. But here's the nuance. Caitlin Clark didn't ask for that framing. She didn't declare herself the face of the league. That crown was put on her by the media, by sponsors, by fans. And now, she's being held accountable for a narrative she didn't create, but is forced to carry. That pressure is unsustainable. And it's not being addressed. Not by her team. Not by the league. Not even by the players' union. So now, instead of being in a system designed to support her, Clark is isolated at the exact moment when she should be celebrated. And that isolation is what makes the Saudi offer so compelling. Because for the first time, someone is offering her more than just a salary. They're offering her control. A chance to escape the resentment, the toxicity, the structural dysfunction. A chance to play on a stage where the politics are different, the stakes are higher, and the money finally matches her value. And let's not get it twisted. This isn't about turning her back on the league. This is about the league turning its back on her. From salary to safety to silence, they've made it clear. They weren't ready for what Clark represents. Not just talent, not just fame, but transformation. And when institutions aren't ready to transform, they collapse. The Saudi model is strategic. It's designed to scoop up undervalued talent in sports where the governing bodies are too rigid to adapt. They did it with golf. They've tested it in soccer. And now, They're coming for basketball, women's basketball, because they know the demand is there. They see the numbers. They see the headlines. And they know that if they lock in someone like Caitlin Clark, everyone else follows. This is what the WNBA refuses to see clearly. That's not about just one player. It's about what she unlocks. Angel Reese, Kelsey Plum, Aya Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu. The moment one of them makes the leap, the others will at least consider it. Because the money isn't close. The working conditions aren't close. And the respect? Let's be honest, it's not even in the same zip code. And the WNBA can't fix this with a PR campaign. They can't drop a hype video or an ad spot and make this go away. They're facing a full-on labor crisis, whether they want to admit it or not. Because when one player is being offered generational wealth while everyone else is stuck inside a salary cap that hasn't scaled in decades, something has to break. That something is coming fast. And if it feels like we're watching the league crumble in real time, that's because we are. This isn't a slow burn. This is public, loud, chaotic. And Caitlin Clark is being asked to either hold it all together or walk away and save herself. Stephen A. was right to frame this as a collapse. Because when a league has its moment to shine and chooses tradition over innovation, silence over leadership, resentment over unity, it deserves the consequences. And those consequences are coming in the form of a jet, a billion-dollar offer, and a door swinging wide open. And let's stop pretending the fans aren't noticing. The support for Clark has been massive. The frustration from viewers is growing. You can only treat your star player like a disposable asset for so long before the public starts to turn on you. Before they stop watching. Before they stop caring. The WNBA was handed a gift. A player with crossover appeal. A player who could finally bring in viewers who'd never watched women's basketball. Who could finally bridge the gap between college hype and pro relevance. And instead of protecting that gift, they let her get dragged. Fouled. Undermined. And now, possibly poached. What happens next will define the future of the WNBA. If Clark takes the Saudi offer, it will force the league to either adapt instantly or implode. Salaries will have to rise. Rules will have to change. Leadership will need to face scrutiny like never before. And if they can't deliver, that new Super League becomes more than an exhibition. It becomes the destination. So the league can either rise to the moment or be remembered as the institution that fumbled the most valuable player it ever had. Because Caitlin Clark doesn't need to stay. She doesn't owe the league her loyalty. Not after everything. She's already done more for the WNBA than it's done for her. And if she decides to walk, she'll be walking with more fans, more money, and more freedom than any player in league history. The billion-dollar question is no longer if she'll leave. It's why would she stay? And still, the silence from the WNBA's front office is the loudest part of this entire mess. There's a billion-dollar offer swirling around their brightest star. There are headlines dominating sports media, fans on edge, sponsors watching closely, and not a single press conference. No league-wide address. No reassurance to fans. No acknowledgement of how badly they're losing the plot. It's as if they think this will blow over on its own. But Caitlin Clark isn't a viral moment. She's a market shift. And this isn't blowing over, it's blowing up. Because here's what happens when you have a player whose influence grows faster than the structure around her. The system starts to buckle. We're not just watching Caitlin Clark become a superstar. We're watching her outgrow a league that thought it could keep her boxed in. And now, that box is on fire. The Saudi deal represents everything the WNBA doesn't want to confront. Clark being poached by a state-backed international model? That's not just about money. It's a direct threat to the league's legitimacy. If a player can make 10, 20, 50 times her WNBA salary by stepping outside the system for a few months, then why play within the system at all? And it's not just about Caitlin. This opens the floodgates. If she goes, the next wave of stars won't hesitate. Because once someone shows that the old rules no longer apply, those rules lose all authority. Players talk. Agents strategize. Sponsors follow the buzz. And the WNBA suddenly becomes the league you leave to get paid what you're worth. There's a reason Stephen A. called this financial suicide. Because it's not just one bad decision. It's a pattern. Years of neglect. Years of underpaying talent, resisting reform, and underestimating the power of individual athletes in the social media era. The WNBA has been treating itself like a niche product while its players, especially now, have global reach. And Caitlin Clark is the tipping point. She's not being dramatic. She's not being ungrateful. She's simply responding to the reality in front of her, a league that doesn't pay her, doesn't protect her, and doesn't speak up when she's targeted. And on the other side, a global offer promising not just money, but validation, respect, safety. People keep asking, would she really take it? Why wouldn't she? She's already proven she doesn't need the WNBA to be famous. She had the country watching Iowa women's basketball like it was the NBA Finals. She crashed streaming apps. She broke viewership records. She built a brand so strong that whether she's in Indiana, Istanbul, or Saudi Arabia, it follows her. Her endorsements, Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, don't disappear if she leaves the WNBA. If anything, they scale. Global markets, new audiences, international appeal. The idea that she has to stay tethered to a domestic league to maintain relevancy is outdated. She is the relevancy. And if the WNBA hasn't realized that yet, it's already too late. Because even if Clark stays, the damage is done. The very fact that $1 billion offer is on the table proves how undervalued WNBA talent has been for years. It proves there's money in women's sports, but the current system isn't built to deliver it. The cap is too low. The leadership is too slow. The culture, too rigid. And now, someone else with deeper pockets and bolder vision is stepping in. What happens when players realize they can be bigger than the league they came from? We've seen in golf. We've seen in soccer. And now we're seeing the early cracks form in the WNBA's foundation. This isn't about growing the game anymore. That phrase has been used for too long as a shield to excuse mistreatment and underpayment. Athletes like Clark don't have to sacrifice a personal well-being just to be team players for a system that doesn't evolve. The moral argument falls apart, too. People waving the sports-washing flag are ignoring the moral contradictions baked into the WNBA itself. A league that preaches empowerment but underpays its stars. A league that markets sisterhood but tolerates hazing. A league that celebrates progress but relies on NBA subsidies to survive. So when $1 billion offer comes from a problematic regime, it raises tough, ethical questions, but it also exposes the hypocrisy. Because if the WNBA was truly ethical in its practices, Clark wouldn't even be entertaining this offer. But here we are. And here's the part no one wants to say out loud. This offer gives Clark a way out of the racial tension, too. The dynamic she's navigating in the WNBA is deeply complicated. She's become a lightning rod in a league where race, fame, and legacy all intersect. And no one's creating the space to have that conversation with any real honesty. Not the league, not the coaches, not the media, and certainly not the players' union. The hostility she faces isn't just about basketball. It's about identity. And if the WNBA isn't prepared to acknowledge that and protect her from it, then yes, an international offer becomes very attractive. Because overseas, she's not the face of a racial power struggle. She's just a global star playing ball, collecting checks, and staying out of the fray. Is that escapist? Maybe. But after what she's been through this season, it might also be necessary. And let's not forget, Clark's silence through all of this? That's power, too. She hasn't gone on a media tour. She hasn't clapped back. She hasn't played the victim. She's just kept performing. And that quiet professionalism, it's louder than anything the league has managed to say on her behalf. If she takes the offer, there won't be drama. Just a clean break and a message. A message to every young player watching. A message to every sponsor. A message to every league executive still pretending it's 2004. That message? You can't build a future on undervaluing the present. So what now? The WNBA has a choice. They can keep pretending they've got time, that this is just noise. Or they can overhaul everything fast. Pay scales, discipline policies, leadership visibility, cultural accountability, all of it. Because if they don't, this isn't the end of a drama. It's the start of an exodus. Drop your thoughts below. Should Clark stay and fight? Or is it time for her to cash the check and move on? Like if you're watching this saga unfold in disbelief, and hit that subscribe button for more of the sports meltdowns and media firestorms that change the game.